Renting is not throwing your money away, and home ownership costs way more than just your mortgage. Most people, when they're deciding if they should buy or rent, compare the cost of a monthly rent to monthly mortgage, which is not the correct way to do it. So in this video, we are going to bust common home ownership and renting myths, but most importantly, we are going to talk about how to run the numbers for yourself so you can make the best, most informed decision. So if you're wondering if you should buy or rent, just keep watching. Welcome back to my channel. I am Rachael Camp. I'm a certified financial planner and the founder of Camp Wealth. And in this video, we are tackling the buy versus rent debate. Today, we are going to discuss the 3 questions you need to answer first to guide your decision. We're also going to talk about how to actually run the numbers for yourself. And then finally, we're going to talk about the most important factor that you have to consider when you're contemplating, should I buy versus should I rent? Because this factor will influence how much wealth you actually do build. First, before you ever step foot into a home or an apartment, you need to answer this question. The question is about affordability. What can you actually afford to spend every year on housing? The rule of thumb with housing is to spend no more than 28% of gross income on housing every year. So let's say you make $100,000, 28% would put you at $28,000 a year, or about $2,333 a month. Now, rules of thumb are great for some really quick back of the envelope math, but I would always take this a step further and really analyze your own budget and make sure that it's customized to you. So for example, personally, I value vacations and experiences and a lot of discretionary spending over housing. So for me, I get nowhere close to 28%. My housing expense is about 15% of my gross income. But whatever you do, do not let a mortgage lender tell you how much loan you can afford. They don't know you, they don't know your values, they don't know your expenses. So be very careful here and make sure that you understand what you can afford in housing every year before you ever step foot into a lender's office. The second question you have to ask yourself here is about duration, or how long do you plan to stay in this place? If you're young, if you're hopping around, if you really don't want to be tied down to one place, you should probably rent. But the longer that you plan on staying in one place, the more attractive buying becomes. In my early to mid 20s to even now, I hopped around cities, states, neighborhoods every single year. Buying would have been a terrible financial decision for me. I also just really value flexibility clearly because I hop around so much. So renting always made the most sense for me. The reason renting makes sense for a lot of us who are hopping around is because there are large transaction costs that happen when you buy or sell a home. On top of that, there is the chance that your home may actually lose value in the short term. Both of these, the combination of these, makes buying and selling a home in the short term unnecessarily risky. Now, question number 3 is all about lifestyle and preference. So simply, do you prefer to buy or do you prefer to rent? With renting, the lifestyle is often about flexibility, being able to jump around, not having those maintenance costs, not having to spend any time on lawn care or maintaining the home. On the other hand, buying, you get to really customize your home. You get to make it your own. There's a lot of stability knowing that no one can jack up the rent costs all of a sudden on you. And then maybe too, you have children and you want to raise them in one place. You want this to be their childhood home. There are a lot of psychological factors that we can consider here and that we should consider when we make this decision. Buying a home is primarily a lifestyle decision, but the numbers still have to make sense. It still has to be affordable. So let's jump into that and how to actually run the numbers. The numbers for renting are simple. You have your rent, you might have parking fees, pet fees, things like that, but they are very stable and you can expect them not to change month to month. On the other hand, buying, the numbers aren't so clear and aren't so simple. With owning a home, yes, we have your mortgage, we have insurance, but we also have property taxes, transaction costs, maintenance costs, opportunity costs. All of these costs that we don't really think about, but are very, very real and are still there and we need to consider. My favorite rule for buying versus renting is called the 5% rule. It's created by Benjamin Felix, and I'll link the video below so you can dive deeper into it if you want to. So instead of comparing the cost of a mortgage to the cost of rent, now we're going to compare the unrecoverable costs. And what I mean by unrecoverable costs is the cost that you'll never see again. So people say all the time, renting is throwing money away. You're not building an equity in anything. You're not creating an asset. Well, there's a lot of unrecoverable costs with home ownership too. So what we should do is compare the unrecoverable cost of home ownership to the unrecoverable cost of renting. So the 5% rule says that we can assume about 5% of the value of the home is going to go to unrecoverable costs every year. I want to explain to you where this 5%, how it's made up and where it comes from. So first, we have property taxes. With property taxes, we can assume about 1% of the value of the home has to be paid out to property taxes every year. Now, for those of you who are in the middle of searching for a home, you may actually be able to figure out this exact number, very close to the number for property taxes, and then you can use that. But if you're just kind of starting to think about buying versus renting, we can use 1% of the value of the home every year just as an assumption for property taxes. The second component here of unrecoverable costs in home ownership is maintenance cost. So if you want your home to retain its value or you want it to at least stay functional, there are going to be maintenance costs associated with it. It might be renovating your kitchen, it might be replacing the furnace or getting a new roof, but these things do happen and we can estimate those at about 1% of the value of the home every single year. Finally, we have opportunity cost. And in finance, we explain this as the loss of a potential gain when one alternative is chosen over other alternatives. Let's say it's simpler. Once you use your cash on your home and that's where your cash is, your cash can't make money elsewhere. So it can't make money in the stock market. It can't make money from your business. Wherever else you would have placed your cash, you now lose that potential gain from placing it into your home instead. So let's compare real estate appreciation or the appreciation from your home to a 100% stock portfolio. And when we compare those two, we get an opportunity cost of about 3%. So to summarize here, we have about 1% for property tax, 1% for maintenance costs, and 3% for opportunity costs. That brings us to 5%. That's where the 5% rule comes from. So if we're looking at a $500,000 house, we can take 500,000 times 5%, we get 25,000 a year or 2,083 a month. So that's 2,083 a month or 25,000 a year of unrecoverable costs for home ownership. So if we can rent at that amount or lower, then renting may be the better financial decision. All right, so we've talked about those 3 questions that you have to answer. We've talked about running the numbers. Now I want to share with you one very important factor you have to consider when making this decision. And that's that home ownership has one really huge advantage over renting, and that is forced savings. When you have a monthly mortgage, very few of us are going to miss that mortgage. So it forces us to build equity and build an asset in something. On the other hand, if you rent, and you decide that's the better financial decision, you now have to be a very disciplined saver because missing your monthly mortgage is difficult to do or something we're not likely to do. But missing your monthly investment into the stock market or to something else is much easier to do. So if you want to come out ahead as the renter, you do have to be a very disciplined saver. You have to treat your savings and your investments like you would a monthly mortgage payment. That is a wrap on buying versus renting. If you enjoyed this video and you want to build wealth or become work optional, hit subscribe below to never miss a future video.